Hi, welcome again to today's tutorial on HTML. As you can see, now that we understand what CSS does, let's talk about how we actually use it in our HTML document. Okay, so there are three methods. Let me write here the methods. There are the three methods. The first one is inline CSS. The other method is internal CSS, and there is another method 3, that is external CSS. Okay, so let's understand what these methods are. So inline CSS is when you add style directly to an HTML element using the style attribute. For example, let me write here some code. Okay, so as you can see, uh, for example, check this example. H1, and this is heading. And now, for example, I'm going to write here by using the style attribute. You use here style attribute, and then color will be blue, and then you use here, for example, font size, and font size would be 36. uh, as you can see, this is the style applied only to this specific h1 element. Okay, so this is the style that is only applied to this specific h1 element. While this method works, it's generally not recommended for larger projects because it mixes content with presentation and makes your code harder to maintain. It's useful for quick tests or very specific one-time styling needs. Okay, so let's talk about the other method, that is internal CSS. I'm gonna bring here another heading. So now is the internal CSS. Internal CSS when you write your CSS code inside a style tag. Let's talk about. For example, we are going to start the new document. Then we use here HTML. Here we use the head tag, and here we use the title. As you can see, my CSS. So if you use here the style tag, and now you write here some code like h1, and you write here color. Okay, so color would be, then you write here font size, and it would be 36 px. So if you write here in the body tag h1, this method applies styles to the entire page. It's better than inline CSS because you can style multiple elements at once, but it still means that each HTML page has its own separate CSS code. So in this way, you can add style you can add CSS to your HTML page by using the style tag in the head tag. Okay, so there is another method, that is external CSS. So let's talk about external CSS. External CSS is the most recommended method for professional web development. You create a separate file with the CSS extension, write all your CSS code in that file, and then link it to your HTML document using a link tag. Let's create a complete file. You will press Ctrl plus N, and then you are going to press Ctrl plus S. Then you save the file here, style.css, in the same folder where this index.html file exists. Now you write some code here. Let me write some code, and I'm gonna write here the title. then you write here my sample page. So let me write here, I did a very big mistake. You're gonna write here the head tag, then you write here title my sample page from the head tag, and then write the body tag. Okay, so here I'm gonna write here h1. This is heading. As you can see, there is no effect in the preview tab. Let me write here some code in the style. Okay, so style.css file. Color would be blue, and then the font size would be 36 px. You can see we have written a code in the style.css file, but there is no effect. Okay, so what you are gonna do, so you have to write to add the link in the head tag. So add a link, let me write here link, and then write here this way. For example, you are going to write here the style sheet, then you are going to write here href, and you need to write here the style.css. So when you write this method gives you all the benefits we discussed earlier. So you can control multiple pages with one CSS file, keep your HTML clean and focused on content, and maintain your style efficiently in one central location. Okay, so in this way, you can use external CSS. Let's talk about how CSS code is actually written. CSS has a very specific syntax that you need to follow. A CSS rule consists of two main parts, a selector and a declaration. Okay, so there is a selector and there is a declaration. In declaration, there are uh, curly braces, and for example, there is a property and value separated by colon and ends with a semicolon, as you can see in the CSS file. Okay, so h1 is the, you can see, is the selector. We are targeting all the h1 elements. The curly braces, as you can see in the code, these are the declarations, and color we have entered. For example, I'm going to write here the red color. When you write here the red color, then you can see red is the value. Okay, so color is the property. Font size, if you write here the 24 px, then you can see the effect. So in this way, if you write here the text align, okay, and you write here center, then you can see the effect in the preview tab. So each declaration changes one aspect of how the element appears. You can have as many declarations as you need within a single rule. So let me introduce you to some of the most commonly used CSS properties that you will be working with regularly. Okay, let me switch back to the index.html file, and I'm gonna use the pre-tag, pre-formatted text. There is a one property, one you can say a property, that is color. Okay, so you use color if you want to set the text color, then you use the color property. Okay, let me mark it. And there is another property, that is font family. Family is used when you want to set the font type. Okay, so there is another property, that is font size. So it is used when you want to set the text size. There is another property, that is font weight. It is used to bold the text. Okay, so there is another property, that is text align, as we have used earlier. So you can use this property to uh, align your text left, in the center, write or to justify. Okay, so there is another property that is text decoration. So when it is used to underline the text or strike through. So there is another property that is margin. So margin, it creates space outside an element. Okay, so there is another property that is padding. It is used to create a space inside an element between the content and the border. So there is another property that is line height. So it controls the spacing between lines of text. Another property, let's talk about another property that is width. Okay, so width is another property. Then there is another property height. Okay, so there is another property that is border. Another property there is background color. For example, there is another property that is background image. So these are the properties, and there are too many properties. We will use them in the different forms, and in this way you can use these properties in CSS. So let's talk about CSS selectors. So CSS selectors are incredibly powerful. Let me explain the different types. Target all the elements of a specific. For example, if you write some code here like dog type, okay, then you write HTML, and here you're gonna use the HTML, and then you need to use here the head tag and then title. Let me write here some example. And if you write start the body tag and you write here the paragraph, my first paragraph. Okay, so if you set the color in CSS file like p, and then you write here color blue, so when you write this, it will change the color until we add some link in the head text. So let me add some link, and then we use the rel, and here I'm going to use the style sheet. Then we need to write here h. Here we are going to use the style.css file, and as you can see the effect in the preview tab. So they style all the paragraph elements. So CSS selector, there is another CSS selector targets elements with a specific class attribute. For example, if you use the dot highlight class name of the paragraph or anything else, so this styles all the elements with the class. So in this way you can use more selectors. There are more advanced selectors, but these are the fundamentals you will use most often. Okay, so for example, if you are using the three headings in your HTML code, for example, there is h1, okay, main heading, then you use like h2 secondary heading, then you use h3 uh, third heading. Okay, so if you set here the code like h1, then you write here h2, and then you write here h3. So as you can see, the style all it means that this style all h1, h2 and h3 are the elements. So it applies the same style to the multiple elements in this way. So remember when I mentioned cascading at the beginning in the previous video, when I mentioned the cascading, now let's explain what that means. So the cascade in CSS refers to how the browser decides which style to apply when there are multiple rules targeting the same element. So CSS follows a priority system. More specific selectors override less specific ones. For example, an ID selector like header is the more specific than a class selector. Okay, so class selector dot header, like there is a dot header right here. This way it is less selector, less specific. So when specificity is equal, the rule that appears last in your CSS file wins. So style marked with the important override everything else, but use this sparingly. Let me give you an example. For example, if you have a paragraph here and then you use dot spatial, okay, and you use color red. This is the dot special is the class name. Okay, so the text will be red because the class selector is the more specific than the element selector. Understanding the cascade is crucial for debugging CSS and writing efficient style sheets. So one of the most important concepts in CSS is the box model. Every element in the HTML is essentially a rectangular box. The box model describes how the space around and inside the box works. So the box model consists of four parts from inside to outside, and that are first is the content, the actual content of the element like text and images, and second is the padding, so transparent space between the content and the border. There is third, the border. Border is a line that goes around the padding and content. You can make it visible or invisible. So another is the margin, and this is the transparent space outside the border. So margin creates space between elements. So if you want to write here some margin, we talked about earlier, I'm gonna write here the padding. Okay, so you can write here padding and 20 px, and then if you write here the border and you write here 5 px, then you write solid black. Okay, so as you can see the effect, you can see the effect in the preview tab. Then if you write here margin 10 px, in this way you can check the effect in the preview tab. So the total width this element takes up is 300 px content plus 40 px padding left and right and 10 px border left and right. So understanding the box model is essential for creating proper layouts and spacing in your designs. So thank you for watching this video, and we will discuss CSS more in the upcoming video, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.